get the slides up. So yeah, so this is a little bit of a left turn, but the next thing we had today was a little demo that, as Ryan said, we've done a couple times, and it seems to, I think, be novel if nothing else, and interesting. So this is something that, yeah, for a session that we're recording, I think it's perfect because I can kind of do a little bit of a quick demo, and then if there was pieces like, oh, like what spreadsheet formula did he use there or whatever, you can go back and watch the recording. But this started as a soapbox a couple years ago, where definitely for good reason, one of the initial very bright line, don't do this with AI, that we heard, that Ryan and I heard just in all of our conversations, like, never put, real data into these systems. Don't use this to generate IEPs. Don't use this to evaluate, like actual data with assessments and stuff. And like, obviously that's a right line of thinking, but also like a little bit misguided, where from the earliest, Ryan and I were like, true, but like with a little bit of tech know-how and a little bit of massaging, like true, don't do that. But you're also like throwing a lot of, there's a lot of babies in that bathwater, where you're not getting the full power of these systems, because one of the things it's great at is taking huge amounts of data and identifying trends and combing through it and knowing how to get insights from it. So let's massage it a little bit and find ways to get all of the bang out of the AI systems with no risk. So I've got a little protocol that I've shared in the past, but I'm going to do like a little demo in a sec of how. So this is like, I've already anonymized the data, but you're going to see data directly from iReady. So, it's real, like student performance data at the student level. So with student names and IDs, they're fake student names and IDs already, but you could do this with just a real export from any system. I'm going to put it into Google Sheets, use a tool that you may not have heard of called Mockaroo. And I'll show what that is. And then put it into ChatGPT. So here's if it's sharing this tab, Ryan, yes, okay. So I've got a huge spreadsheet that this is just like an actual export from IXL. So I've already, you can see it's Acme Elementary School, so it's a fake school. These are fake names that were in fake student IDs and all of that. But the columns are the same. So the first thing I do, so in broad strokes, you take your data, you remove anything identifiable from it, while building a map to re-identify it later. Then you can upload your entire data set into any AI that you choose, because it's anonymized. So it's not going to find student names in there, because there are no student names in there. So the process that I do for this is, the very first thing you want to do is like delete any row or any columns that you don't want to evaluate on. So I've got like student names here. I'll keep those. I'll keep the ID. This like state ID, I don't, I've already got there, like, this is let's say this is the district student ID that's issued. So I've already got like a unique identifier for each student. So I'm going to just delete the state ID. I don't want that in there. This unique ID, or this like username, is something that like Clever generates. So I don't need their Clever ID. If I had like birth dates in here, I would delete those, because that's not going to be an interesting slice to look at this data. Classroom teachers, though, I might want like a classroom level analysis, so I'm not going to delete classroom teachers. So like the guiding principles here is like, use the least amount of data that you want to analyze. So if I want classroom level analysis, then I'll need classroom teachers here. Don't really need start dates and complete data. I don't care when that student was like enrolled. Maybe I'll leave, actually, are these all fall? Yeah, so this is just, I must have exported just the fall, so I'll delete that, because that's not going to give me any insight. I'm just scrolling through to make sure this is all, like Lexile ranges and phonological awareness. So I'm gonna keep those columns, because that will be good data. And then that looks like it. I'm just gonna go back forward. These are blank. So we weren't captured. I don't need like this enrolled. So I'm going to, just delete G through J, delete all of those columns. So now I've got something like, I definitely want grade level. Academic year's fine. It's the same for everybody's school. So I've got my data in a place that like I'm comfortable with. So I'm going to rename this as original. Just I'm renaming that worksheet on the left, and I like change colors, and I'll make that like red. So I'm not gonna touch the original. So this is my original data set, and I'm just gonna, if you right click on that tab, you can duplicate it, and then I'm gonna call this the anonymized. Anonymized. And I'm going to make this green as like go, because this is the one that I'll download and send to ChatGPT in a little bit. So here, my goal is to get from, to replace these student IDs. I replace the names. Schools already, fake, but like these teachers I'll want to anonymize. So any data that you want to anonymize, you basically need what I would call like a lookup table for that. So I'm going to create a third tab at the bottom and call these my lookup tables. And this is just a way for me to map. I'm going to do this for students and teachers. So I'm going to say original student ID, anonymized. And then I'll come over here and just paste this and say original teacher, anonymized teacher. So my student IDs, I'm going to come over to my anonymized data, since right now it's the exact same. And I'm just going to, scroll down to the bottom here, copy all of these, and then just paste them. So this was my list of I don't know if you saw, that was just a pet peeve of mine, but it pasted the formatting of that. So when you hit like Control V or Command V, if you have something that has like cell highlighting and stuff like that, or different, some stuff is bold or whatever, if you just do Control V or Command V, if you're on a Mac, it'll paste it with that formatting. If you hold Shift, so you're like Control Shift V or Command Shift V, it'll paste it without the formatting. So I usually just do that as a, design choice or whatever. So then I'm just going to, so this is their real ID. I'm just going to assign like 1, 2, 3, and I'm just going to give them a fake ID. So instead of like putting real data into this system, now I'm going to come copy all of these fake IDs and just paste over that. So now in my anonymized set, their student ID is just a 1, a 2, a 3, or whatever. And that's important because I can map that, I can map this later on. I'll know, oh, student number 6 was really this ID. And if it's that ID, I'll have their first name, their last name, whatever I want. Because I don't even need, at this point, I don't need names in my data set at all, because I have all of that. I can map IDs to names from my original data. So now I don't even need to send, I can just delete those columns. I don't need to send first name, last name. So every ID is now anonymized. Grade, I want to keep. So it's like, what is, if student ID number 5 is a second grader, that means nothing to ChatGPT. That's not a real student. So I can send that, gender, ethnicity, race, I can send all of that stuff. These, pretending that these are real teacher names, I want to anonymize these though. What's weird though is if I took this whole, all of that data and pasted it here, and then created, like, let's just say like fake teacher names or whatever, I can't really do it like this because, Sawyer is going to show up multiple times and Eberhardt's going to show up multiple times because, multiple kids have a single teacher. So a cool formula that a lot of people don't know about is you can say, if you start with an equal sign and type unique, and then open up a parentheses, I can now go to that tab and click that column and then close my parentheses, and it's going to pull all the, it pulled class teachers here, but now these are like just the single version. I don't need 520 rows of teachers, because I don't have 520 teachers. I actually have, down here I have 21 teachers. So now I want to create, fake names for this. So the tool that I like to use for this kind of stuff, if you ever need to generate like fake schools, fake student names, fake teacher names, there's a tool called Mockaroo that's totally free. And it comes with like it's going to make these columns initially. You can add fields, like you can say, oh, I want to create, it's got whatever, you know, country codes, airport codes, car makes and models, you know, app names, domain names, like it can generate lots of fake data and as many rows as you want. So I'm just going to, because I'm just dealing with teacher, I'm going to delete the ones that it creates for me. And I'm just going to use first name and last name. And I only had 21 teachers, so I don't need 1,000 rows. I can just say 21 rows. And when I generate that, oh, I'm going to need to share my entire screen, won't I? Well, I'll just paste it in because it downloaded as a CSV, so it's opening up in Excel for me right now. But I'm just going to come in and paste that. So it generated this for me. Whoops. And I'm going to hit Shift to paste it that way. So here I could just use, I could use these last names and like map those to the teacher. So Eberhardt is really this fake teacher Tisserman, and Sawyer is this fake teacher Attenbrow. If you wanted to keep that format though, I'm going to make a new column called combined name. And there's another formula called concatenate, and concatenate combines multiple columns of data. So I can say, start my formula with an equals and start typing concatenate. And then I want to concatenate, if I do, first name, so so what it's looking for is like, I'm going to put commas between everything I want to combine. So if I click, first name, comma, last name, it's going to just like, combine those, like no initial, no space or anything like that. So if you want a space, you would add that with 2 parentheses. So if any letter, if I put like the letter D, it's going to add D there. But if you any like string of text, you put quotation marks around. So I can put quotation, space, quotation, and now it's going to add a space between those names. If I wanted it to look exactly like we had over here, where it was like first initial period, then I can say, oh, for this G column, for the first name column, I actually want the left 1 character. So give me the first character from the G column, then give a period and then a space, then give me the last name. And now it's going to like create that. And that's just like if for whatever reason you needed that name exactly like it. You probably know you can drag your formulas down and it'll fill that for all of the rows. Another shortcut is if you just double click that little dot, it's like a square in Excel, but if you just double click that, it'll fill down all the way until it runs out of like content. So it'll just, sometimes you have like thousands of rows to do and it's hard to drag all the way down. So if you just double tap that. So now I can copy these fake teachers' names. And then if I paste it here, that's gonna, I pasted the formula, you know what I mean? So now it's trying to concatenate like different stuff. So I'm gonna, again, if I hold Shift and paste it, I'm pasting just the text. I'm not pasting the formulas and stuff like that. So if I zoom out a little bit, I'm just gonna delete that, whoops, like I don't need, oh yeah, because I have, I'm deleting a formula just like I just said not to. So I'll copy all of these and then I'll paste with Command Shift V and it'll just paste that formula. That was the extra one that I copied. Just delete those. So now I have 2 like anonymized lists. I have fake teachers and then fake student IDs. Whoops, and I kind of drug that to the side. So I'm going to come back to, let me zoom out a tad. I'm going to come back to my anonymized. I already did this, the students, because I copied them in order, the students was just a copy and paste. So I already did those, but the teachers, if I just copy and paste, it's like the order is super weird. So I'm going to add another column and say, class teacher. And now every time I see an Eberhardt, it needs to match that to Tisserman, my fake teacher. So I'm going to say, and this is a really cool function. If you've never used it, I use this one probably more than any other function in Excel or in Google Sheets. It's called VLOOKUP. So I can say, I'm going to, and in a VLOOKUP, you give it the thing you're searching for, then the range that you're searching in. Index means the column you want to return, and then if it's sorted. So that's like a yes or a no, so a 1 or a 0. So I'll show you what I mean there. So the thing I'm searching for is go find E. Eberhard, and then a comma. The range, you will find him in my lookup table. And then I'm going to put a comma. The index is the column I want to return. So I don't want to return his name again. I want to return this anonymized name. So that's actually the second column in that range that I gave you. And then no, my list is not alphabet, sorted. So I can put a 0 there. And then cool, I have Eberhardt, and then it matched that to Tisserman like I wanted. So now I could double click this. It's going to give me a lot of errors because when you, and I'll do it for now, because when you do formulas and click it down, so you'll notice my L2, it's looking up Eberhardt. Then for Attenborough, it goes to L3 because it's looking up Sawyer. But notice that my range is changing each time too. Like that range started at D2 to E22. And then now the range is D3 to E23. And on this one, it's D4 to E24. So Sawyer, if I look at D4 to E24, that's the range it's looking for. Well, Sawyer's outside that range now, so it's not going to find him. So it's going to be wrong. It's going to error out, and then it's going to error out for every others because now I'm off by 1. So the way you can lock cells and ranges is if I put a $sign, that locks column D, and if I put a $sign there, that locks row 2. So now I'm like locking. So okay, as you go down, change the L2 to L3, L4, L5, and so on, but don't change my range. I always want to look in the same range. And then now if I, double click, I already filled it. So the double click only kind of works the first time. So now I'll have to drag these down like a caveman and get all the way to the bottom. And because I locked the range, now it'll find all those teachers. If I just say, cool, I've got my anonymous teacher now, I'm just going to delete this column. You can imagine what's going to happen. It's going to break all of my formulas. So I just highlight the thing and do Command-Shift-V. It pastes the text instead of the formula. So now instead of, what was really in this cell was this formula. But when I do, Command-Shift-V, it pastes the text instead of it. So now I'm free to delete this one because the formula is not in there anymore. It's just that text. And so I know that was a lot of steps. Happy to pause and go back on any of that. But now I have fully anonymized data. So now I can just go file, download, as an Excel spreadsheet or as a CSV. And now I can come into ChatGPT and I've anonymized everything. It's fake student IDs. Actually, let me make sure so I was on the, it'll download whatever tab you're on. So I wanted to make sure why I renamed this is I'm on the anonymized tab here. So now I can go to ChatGPT, add photos, have my anonymized data, and say, please provide, teacher level insights on this data. Which teachers can I support, and what support would be best? I'm not even seeing it thinking. I get this sometimes, so I usually just stop and retry the question.
It does that to me too.
Yeah, and then now I see the little dot. So you can also try with different. I could have tried again with a different model. So I'll just do a fast one.
Derek, while we're waiting,
Yeah.
I'm curious if you go back to your spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Did you try, and I haven't tried this yet, I have it on my list of experiments to try. The Gemini thing in the upper right hand corner, did you try up a little bit more? Yeah.
Yeah,
did you try just
I have like just straight anonymize these columns?
An anonymized spreadsheet with a lookup.
Yeah, let me try this. I'll go to the original tab. Actually, I'll duplicate it one more time. Gemini, make it purple. And then, yeah, please anonymize columns A, B, C, and then what was teacher? We'll just say like N.
With a lookup table though.
Oh, reference the
a lookup table to be able to.
Yeah.
You want it to create the lookup table though, right? So the instructions are.
Oh, so please anonymize. Please create a lookup table with fake data or columns.
Do you need to be on a certain tab or call it out?
It's gonna create it.
I don't know. I've never done this, but I'm super curious.
Then anonymize the data according to the lookup table.
I follow this guy called Jeff Su, S-U. He used to work at Google, and he sends little Google tips daily. And this was one of them last week. And I was like, I gotta try that.
Okay, so it said, I'm unable to create a new tab in your spreadsheet environment, but I can generate the requested lookup table here and then explain how to apply it. Since the original data was not provided in the context, the lookup table below is generated using random sensible data.
So it doesn't really execute things on your spreadsheet.
So yeah, it's telling me to use VLOOKUP and stuff though. Yeah, so it's.
All right, well, I'm going to dig into this more.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, that would be, and certainly you have to imagine and give it 12 more months or something, and that will be there.
I think this is a great use case though for testing it. I love it.
Totally. I'm gonna go to Gemini because that's like ChatGPT seems to be struggling with this. I wonder.
There was a typo in your prompt.
Oh yeah, a couple of them. I'm also good. I've played with this every now and then. Sometimes when it fails, it's actually hitting a guardrail and not telling you. So I wonder if it's actually I'm hitting a data privacy guardrail that it knows most time you're asking for like teacher level data or something. It's not going to be. Man, I just cannot type today. Okay, Google is lying. So these teachers have the highest rates of rush flags or significantly low average test duration. So that's an iReady thing if kids are going too fast through their test. Support recommended, provide coaching on proctoring techniques, instructional support for phonics, foundational skills. I've got like these teachers, instructional support for vocabulary and comprehensive. So it's going to like build out recommendations from the data. It looked at all of that for me. And can make like specific recommendations on like, hey, these teachers maybe just need more help with proctoring iReady diagnostics. These teachers might need like specific phonics or vocab. I could ask, you know, are there any other trends? Topic, demographic. Because I kept race, I kept ethnicity, things that you would normally want to anonymize in data or not put. You know, I because it's tied to a fake student, you know, I kept that. So if it's, you know, it's basing this off like teacher, you know, Satterford and Wellham are have this many students who are 2+ levels below. So it's fake teachers. So I'd have to be like, oh, who is Satterford? That is, you know, that's the original teacher Keenan. So now I'm like mapping it back to that teacher. Oh, cool. I even made some graphs. Percentage of students below grade level by domain. Below grade level. So phonics is actually stronger here. Vocabulary and comprehension for informational text is low. Percentage of students on or above grade level by grade. So like first grade is struggling. I can tell at a glance. Percentage of students below grade level by domain across grades. So phonics, now I've got like longitudinal data that like we've got a problem. Our first grade, oh, this is below, yeah, this is below grade level. So like we've got a great, we are our second, third, fourth, and fifth are continuing to close the gap. But like first grade is a problem for vocab, lit, you know, and informational texts. And I mean, a problem meaning like that's what the data is saying, not that those teachers are a problem, but it's like, it's, you know, it just their intro to literacy. And yeah, we are getting good data, but in a lot of ways you can say like, hey, this is like the system's kind of working as designed. As they go through the years, you know, their phonics is getting stronger, maybe not as much for those other domains. Stark drop in proficiency at the grade 1 level, as we talked about. Vocabulary soon, let's see if other ELL support, high phonics proficiency, but critical vocabulary failure. Consistent performance gap for Hispanic, ELL, and low SES students. So, you know, some recommendations there. But yeah, I mean, I obviously we can all just think of our own questions to ask this, but yeah, I want to just like sort of pause here. So that's the process, and there's a lot there that I would have, you know, lost if I just had told my district blanketly, don't ever put student information in here, you know, rather than, hey, here's a process that does take some tech skill and you know, some training, but it wasn't, you know, it took a few minutes to anonymize hundreds of rows of data. And it's like 3 formulas. You know, if you get good at these 3 formulas, then yeah, you can really open up the possibility and be totally, I have a absolutely clear conscience, and I'm 100% comfortable inputting really important data into these systems now, because it's not actually touching real students. We'll see if that ever, yeah, it's just struggling. Maybe if I switch model to like, so yeah, I don't know if there's any questions or any sort of like clarification, if maybe you've, you know, familiar with VLOOKUP and stuff, and that was nothing new for you, but it's something I've trained at my last district, got the principals pretty good. We had, you know, monthly leadership meetings that our principals were a part of. So I trained this a couple times and made a little video for them and stuff. And that was, you know, pretty appreciative. And then our last cohort, some people had some pretty interesting use cases for that, because yeah, it's like, I mean, this was just one school's iReady data, but in theory, you know, I could have 10,000 rows across multiple schools, and you know, it can really get at some analysis way faster than I'm pretty good at Excel, but way faster than I would be able to, you know, identify any of those trends.
Have you ever tried to do this agentically? So it just goes through all the steps automatically. And do you think we'd have the same sort of data leak issues?
For those, so I think I shared last time, like making those dashboards programmatically and stuff. So, you know, if I do it agentically, I usually just like take the time to build it in Python, and then I have steps that I, you know, do the same process where I anonymize data in the code, and scrub out anything so it's not hitting the models. But yeah, I haven't really played with some of the agents that might be able to do some of this too. Yeah, maybe it's a trust thing. I don't know if I would like at some point, I don't want any system to like see the real data, you know, like at some point, if you give it to an agent and trust that it's anonymizing it while you're giving it the real data, you know, at first. So I don't really know a step that doesn't require some human input to scrub it first before it hits any of the, you know, any of the systems.
What about via API?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, I do it via API, but then you're talking, you know, custom code, which tech departments can do, but this one is like principals can do. You know, they could anonymize it themselves and not have to open up a Python terminal.
I have a pondering.
Yeah, yeah. I love you. Like come up with good things to test too. So happy to test anything that's.
Well, no, this is more just a curiosity, you know, wondering in the future. When I think about iReady, my understanding, you know, the kids are on a device, they're answering questions. I haven't actually seen it work, so this is just kind of what I imagine it being. And then the real gain is that you have data to try
Right.
to make sure you're intervening at the right times, you're supporting in the right ways. But in order to have data that you can do something with, we're kind of restricted in the kind of questions you ask and such. So my pondering is, as these things evolve pretty quickly, and we started this conversation with a debate about out there in the world about one-to-one devices and whether those are good or bad. Is there a world where instead of the kids answering things on devices, or there's some way where it doesn't feel like they're doing that, but it's looking at their facial expressions, it's recording where they're pausing, it's hearing their inflection or their, you know, frustration, or that they're getting it. Like we're analyzing things that we haven't really been able to analyze and to grasp whether they're actually getting it versus multiple choice questions that, you know, I mean, they could get really good at multiple choice questions, or it's a 25% chance they're going to get it anyway, or, you know, and, you know, is that really scary, or is that, could we actually support them better? Like, you can argue it both ways, but just like I said, a pondering where things.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. My mind, as you said, that went immediately to. So they talked about the LPAC test with their alpacas. So that's the California test for like English learners. So you know, if a student comes in and their initial like intake form at the district specifies that there's another language other than English spoken at the house, then that like triggers the school to give this initial LPAC, and that initial test, maybe that student's fluent in English, so it's like, okay, cool, you're not, you know, you speak Spanish at home, but you're fluent in English, so there's no like English learner designation to give you. But if they score anything other than a 4, then they're put into an English learner status and progress through, you know, curriculum and then are given periodic LPAC, you know, reassessments to sort of see their progress. One of those dimensions is oral. So, you know, like, yeah, it's a time, like it's a time intensive test to administer. And yeah, you could totally see a world where we have AI that's, I mean, what's great about AI is you can really, anybody who's ever evaluated like graded assessments knows that like inter-rater reliability is really low across and really hard to develop across any test. So say like the AP exam, they give lots of graders, you know, a pile of papers, and it's like what somebody marks as a 3, another person's going to put as a 4, and another person. So AI, in theory, could solve for that because it's the same, you know, computerized brain, for lack of a better word, making the assessment. So that, like, that's a huge plus for like assessment administration. Is it solves the problem of inter-rater reliability, which is the problem in grading assessments. But then, yeah, it opens up, as you say that, like, it totally opens up dimensions that, you know, are pretty intensive and like, and human capital exhaustive to use. It's like, yeah, a student's oral presentation on a topic could say a lot more than a potentially AI written essay would, you know. Like, did you actually read, you know, Grapes of Wrath, or did you have AI generate that essay? Like, you know, our classroom assignment isn't the essay, it's a, you know, a 2-minute speech on this chapter or so. And yeah, you could see AI being really, really good. And in some ways that are like, I think, like positive too, where I think I've shared this before, where using it in that sort of like explicit way frees up some of like the human emotions of it, where it's not, you know, Mr. Rao grading your you know, understanding of Grapes of Wrath or something. It's this impartial AI, and you could probably prompt it to give a positive sandwich every time, and it becomes less about personalities and more about like personal growth and improvement and stuff. So yeah, I don't know, Finn, do you know of anybody who, like, any system, you're more in the ed tech space, so you might know, like, what Learn to Win doing that kind of stuff? Like, do they do multimodal assessment?
We weren't there yet. I think the risk is still reliability, I think, you know, especially for anything that's like summative. It's just like too risky. Formative, I think it's the use case is there. I think Conmigo is doing some of that. I think even Google Classroom has some elements of it, but it's still emerging for sure.
So how is it different? I guess if we're looking at like the iReady data, we have some robots, I can't remember what they're called in our district, but they're like emotional support robots. So it sends like facial expressions.
Interesting.
I can't remember what they're called. But I mean, I do think the technology is evolving to be able to pick up cues on facial expressions that you'd have to actually be looking at the student to understand that they're struggling. You have 30 students in the class and you aren't capturing it, but if it could be captured in that moment. And again, like, I'm just wondering if there's a way that's going to happen where it doesn't feel like the kids are tied to devices that are like so limited in their interactions, but it's more like they're, I don't know. Like I said,
Yeah, I wonder if that gets in. I mean, it's just like, as it opens up one box, it closes another, where, and in that specific example, I could see AI definitely outperforming humans on, you've got 38 kids in your class as a, you know, secondary math teacher or whatever. And yeah, like, there's probably a biological marker of confusion, you know, like a furrowed eyebrow or something that sensors are really good at picking up. But then you're just, I mean, you immediately run into cameras used in classrooms, which is a huge no-no, you know, and then, yeah, the same parent advocate groups, you know, would be coming for that kind of stuff. So yeah, you're gonna make me think about this. Like, there's probably a little sweet spot though that is not privacy invasive, is not removing teacher autonomy, but also could be really, really valuable and novel to, you know, redefining what's possible.
I guess just what's got me thinking is, what is the data we collect today? What is the data we might be collecting in 2 years? And then what does that mean for how we're supporting kids? So, this was a good session. Thank you.
Of course.